Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into something pretty challenging that a lot of people deal with. A hot-tempered boss or colleague.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. We actually got a message from a listener, Emily in Vancouver, that really highlights this.
It really does. So Emily's new at this marketing firm, right? And her manager, Mr. Johnson, apparently has quite the temper.
She mentioned an incident, I think, in a meeting.
Yeah, she paused during a presentation, maybe lost her train of thought for a second, and he apparently just slammed his hand on the table, started shouting about how could she struggle with something so simple.
Wow, that's intense. Understandably, she said she was pretty shaken up.
Totally. And now she says she feels like she's constantly walking on eggshells,
Yeah.
second-guessing everything, even thinking about quitting.
That constant anxiety just wears you down. It really damages your confidence.
Exactly. Her question was basically, how do I handle this? How do I cope?
It's a really important question.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to give you, the listener, some practical tools grounded in psychology for situations just like Emily's.
Right. Strategies to protect yourself emotionally, but also to communicate, well, more effectively.
It's about moving beyond just reacting, right? Finding ways to maybe even shift the dynamic proactively.
The aim is really empowerment, helping you navigate this with more confidence and less distress.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First stop, building what we might call an emotional firewall. There's this concept from Adlerian psychology called task separation.
It's separation. Sounds a bit academic, maybe, but it's super practical here.
How so?
Well, it helps you figure out whose job or whose task an emotion really is. So when Mr. Johnson blows up, maybe he's stressed, maybe insecure, whatever. That reaction, his difficulty managing his feelings, that's fundamentally his task, not Emily's.
Okay. So the core idea is his feelings are his responsibility.
Exactly. And your task, Emily's task, is your work.
Got it. It's asking, whose task is this? Is it my job to manage my boss's anger? Probably not.
Right. Your job is to make sure your work is up to par, that you're meeting expectations professionally.
And there could be loads of reasons behind his temper, couldn't there?
Oh, absolutely. The sources we looked at mention things like their own performance pressure, maybe a need for control, stuff from their past, or honestly, sometimes just poor communication skills.
Or maybe even a skewed idea of what leadership looks like in that company culture.
That too. But realizing the source of the anger is likely internal to him is key.
That helps you avoid internalizing it, like absorbing his anger as if it's about you.
Precisely. You need that mental separation. Maybe even a little mantra like, my boss being angry doesn't automatically mean I failed.
Ooh, I like that. My boss being angry, me failing. It detaches your self-worth from their mood swings.
Exactly. It lets you shift your focus back to what you can control.
Like the quality of my work, understanding the assignment, how I communicate.
Right. So instead of getting sucked into the emotional drama, you think, okay, was my presentation clear? Did I miss anything? What can I do next time? Focus on solutions, not just the reaction.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about managing your own response, not theirs.
And that flows really nicely into the next strategy, which is about structured communication, using something called the DEAR framework.
DEAR. Okay. Yeah. And you're saying this is more preventative, not just damage control.
Yeah, ideally, it sort of blends nonviolent communication with like good project management habits to try to head off those flare-ups.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through DEAR. Let's use a common scenario, maybe. Project delays. Say, because the client keeps changing things. Emily in marketing could definitely face that.
Perfect example. So DEAR is an acronym. DER. D is for describe.
Describe, just the facts.
Just the facts. No emotion, no blame. So instead of you keep changing the scope and messing everything up.
Which would definitely make someone defensive.
Right. You'd say something like, the project is currently 2 days behind schedule. This follows 3 rounds of changes to the client requirements. See? Neutral. Observable.
Okay. Very clear difference. Just stating what happened was E.
E is for express. This is where you share your feelings, but using I statements, taking ownership.
So not, you're making me stressed, but...
More like, I'm feeling concerned that this delay might impact our quarterly goals, or I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the shifting timelines. It's about your experience.
Right. Using I feel sounds much less accusatory. Okay, got D and E. What's A?
A is for assert. This is where you clearly state your need or propose a solution. You're not just complaining, you're suggesting a way forward.
Okay, so in the project delay example,
You could say, to get us back on track, I recommend we prioritize the core features for this release and maybe push the non-essential ones to the next phase.
so you're being constructive, finding a path forward, love it, and R.
R is reinforce. This is crucial. You highlight the mutual benefit. How does your suggestion help everyone involved? The boss, the team, the project.
Framing it as a win-win.
Exactly. So you might finish with, this approach would let us meet the client's most urgent needs now. It minimizes overtime for the team, and it keeps us closer to hitting those quarterly targets we're all aiming for.
Wow. DER. Describe, express, assert, reinforce. That feels incredibly well structured. Like it takes the emotional heat out of potentially difficult conversations.
That's the goal. Focus on facts, feelings, yours, needs, and shared benefits. It promotes a much clearer, less confrontational dialogue.
Which can be gold when dealing with someone prone to outbursts.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Another tool our sources mentioned is the DISC framework. I think I've heard of this. It's about personality styles, right?
Exactly. DISC looks at 4 main behavioral styles: dominant, influential, conscientious, and steady. The idea is if you can get a sense of your manager's style.
You can tweak your communication to land better.
Yeah.
And maybe avoid triggering them.
Precisely. It's about adapting your approach.
Okay, let's break these down. What about the dominant type? What's the strategy there?
Dominant types, often called D styles, are typically assertive, results-focused, maybe a bit impatient. They value control and efficiency.
So don't beat around the bush.
Definitely not. Get straight to the point. Start with the conclusion or the bottom line. Focus on results, risks, outcomes.
Give me an example.
Instead of a long buildup, you might say, okay, Plan A costs 10% more but gets it done 5 days faster. Plan B is on budget but has a higher risk of a week's delay. Direct, focused on impact.
Makes sense. They want the takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay, what about influential, the I style?
Influential types are often more outgoing, enthusiastic, optimistic. They like collaboration and are often interested in the bigger picture, the vision.
So you appeal to that enthusiasm.
Yeah, connect your ideas to their broader goals or vision. Allow some room for brainstorming, maybe. Highlight the positive potential. You could say, this new campaign design really supports those user experience improvements you were talking about last week. We think it could create a lot of positive buzz. Connect to their vision.
Okay, focus on the big picture and the excitement. Got it. Next up, conscientious, C style. Sounds like the detail people.
That's generally right. They value accuracy, logic, quality. They want the data, the proof. They like structure and thoroughness.
So you need to come prepared with evidence.
Absolutely. Bring the charts, the analysis, anticipate their questions about details and potential problems. Show your work.
So maybe something like, based on the Q3 data, which I've charted here, and looking at what competitors X and Y are doing, this approach seems the most logical way to address risk Z.
Exactly. Provide that logical, data-driven rationale. But what if you have an idea that's more innovative, less easily proven with existing data? How do you pitch that to a C style?
Good question. Maybe. Frame the potential logically. Acknowledge the lack of hard data, but point to market trends, expert opinions, outline the risks clearly, but also the potential reward, and have a really solid step-by-step plan for how you test or implement it.
That's a smart way to approach it. Acknowledge their need for structure, even when presenting something new. Okay, last one. Steady. The S style.
Steady. What are they like?
S styles tend to be reliable, patient, good listeners. They value stability, predictability, and supportive relationships. Sudden changes can be stressful for them.
So you need to ease them into things. Be collaborative.
Yes. Confirm things step by step. Avoid surprises if you can. Provide reassurance. Build consensus.
So instead of dropping a finished proposal on them, maybe?
Maybe share a first draft. Like, here's the initial outline for the new process. Could you take a look at this stage and give me your thoughts before we flesh out the details? Phased approach. Reassuring.
Okay. DISC. Dominant, influential, steady, conscientious. It's really helpful to think about tailoring your communication like that.
It really is. It's not about changing who you are, but about speaking their language, essentially. It can make a huge difference in how things are received.
Definitely lowers the chances of misunderstandings or hitting a nerve unintentionally. Okay, so we've talked about emotional firewalls, structured communication, adapting to personality. What about building a more systematic defense?
Well,
Proactive stuff.
Good transition. Yes, proactive measures are key. The first one is pretty straightforward, but often overlooked. Leave a communication trail.
Yep, get things in writing.
Basically, yes. Confirm decisions, next steps, agreements via email, or maybe in a shared project document.
So after a meeting,
Send a quick follow-up. Just confirming our discussion. I'll finalize the report by Tuesday. You review by Thursday. Creates clarity, accountability, reduces he said, she said.
makes total sense. And the sources mentioned using things like Gantt charts too. How does that fit?
Tools like Gantt charts provide that visual clarity on timelines, who's doing what, dependencies, when everyone can see the plan and the progress.
There's less room for ambiguity about where things stand, which could be a trigger for a temperamental boss if they feel unsure.
Exactly. Transparency reduces confusion and potential frustration points.
Okay, clear communication trails. What's the next part of this systematic defense?
Creating an emotional first aid kit? I like this metaphor.
Me too. What's in the kit?
Two main things. First, strategies for creating physical space when things get heated.
Like literally stepping away.
If possible, yes, or just pausing the conversation. It's okay to say politely, I need a few minutes to gather my thoughts on this, or can we pause for 10 minutes? I want to pull up that specific data point.
Buys everyone a moment to cool down. A reset button.
Exactly. The second part of the kit is that mental reminder we touched on earlier.
Back to the my boss being upset personal failure idea.
Yes. In that heated moment, consciously bring that thought to mind. Remind yourself their reaction is likely about their pressure, their perspective, not necessarily a reflection on your competence.
Keep your cool, focus on the issue, not the emotion.
Focus on resolution, not reactivity. That's the key.
Okay, communication trail. Emotional first aid kit, that feels like good reactive defense. What about longer term? Building a healthier dynamic.
Yeah.
The sources talked about managing up.
Right. This is about being more proactive over time, taking initiative to improve the relationship and workflow.
So how do you do that? One point was about being a problem solver.
Yeah. Instead of just flagging problems, come with potential solutions already thought through. Our sources suggested maybe adding a risk alert section to regular updates.
How would that work? Not just, uh-oh, supplier might be late.
Right. More like, progress is good here. However, potential risk. Supplier delays. My suggestion. Let's contact your backup vendor now just to get a quote and timeline as a contingency.
Shows you're thinking ahead, you're on top of things, you're not just dropping problems in their lap.
Exactly. Builds trust, reduces their feeling of being caught off guard. Another angle is actively building professional credibility.
How does that tie into managing a difficult boss?
By positioning yourself as competent, informed, and valuable. Our sources suggested, for instance, sharing relevant industry insights.
So Emily in marketing finds a cool article on growth strategies.
She could share a quick summary with Mr. Johnson. Saw this piece on what competitors are doing method A, looked interesting for our goals. Thought you might want to see.
Shows engagement, strategic thinking. Adds value beyond just the assigned tasks.
Positions you as a thinking partner. And the final piece of managing up is managing expectations proactively.
Setting the rhythm of communication.
Pretty much. Establishing clear, predictable times for updates. Reduces uncertainty.
So Emily could suggest.
Hey, to make sure we're always aligned, how about a quick 15-minute check-in every Friday at 10? For anything urgent, I'll reach out immediately, of course.
Creates structure, predictability. Reduces the need for those potentially stressful, ad hoc, where are we with X moments.
Exactly. That routine can bring a sense of calm, especially with someone prone to volatility.
Okay, so wrapping up the core ideas here. A big one seems to be the 80-20 rule. Prevention is better than cure.
Definitely. Investing that effort in clear communication, managing expectations, using frameworks like DEAR or DSC proactively, that's often more effective than just reacting to explosions.
Right, and maintaining that emotional neutrality. Trying hard to see the temper as a signal about them, not a personal attack on you.
That reframing is so crucial for your own well-being and your ability to respond constructively.
And finally, selective compromise. Knowing when to be flexible and when to hold your ground.
Yeah, being adaptable on smaller things, but staying firm on important professional boundaries, ethical lines, or critical decisions where you have expertise, it's a judgment call.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to quickly recap for Emily and everyone listening, we talked task separation for an emotional shield,
Structured communication with DEAR.
adapting your style with DISC,
Building that systematic defense communication trails, emotional first aid.
and the long game, managing up through problem solving, building credibility, and proactive communication rhythms.
It's quite a toolkit, tangible strategies people can actually try.
Absolutely.